Over 1,000 Indians, the largest gathering of Native Americans in decades, have come to North Dakota to support the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. They have been protesting construction of an oil pipeline that cuts through the Standing Rock Reservation. Protesters said an oil leak could destroy their water and ancient ancestral sites.
Our voice has been heard and people are finally noticing us. Not as beings of the past. We're here. We're still fighting, and that does mean a lot.
Last Friday, a federal judge rejected the tribe's effort to delay the pipeline, but shortly afterwards, federal agencies ordered work to stop. The agencies want to reconsider their earlier decisions to approve construction on the Standing Rock Reservation.
The Standing Rock Sioux have won a small victory in their battle to keep an oil pipeline from being constructed across their land. A federal judge persuaded the company building the pipeline, Dakota Access, to temporarily halt construction at some of the sites the tribe considers sacred. The agreement follows a weekend of violent protest, and it was a disappointment, according to tribal attorney Jan Hasselman.
We provided evidence on Friday of sacred sites that were directly in the pipeline's route. By Saturday morning, those sites had been destroyed. And we saw things happening out at Standing Rock, dogs being put on protesters that haven't been seen in America in 40, 50 years.
The demonstrators who were targeted ranged from children to the elderly, according to protester Thomas Alejo.
Children being bit, women, young men, even elders that were out there were trying to stop the construction happening.
At the hearing, Dakota Access denied destroying any sacred sites and accused the demonstrators of attacking both the dogs and the security officers with makeshift weapons. Both sides are now waiting until Friday, when the judge will rule on the tribe's request for a temporary injunction on the construction.
But first, as we reported last week, a protest in North Dakota against a major oil pipeline continues to grow. Over 100 Native American tribes have joined the fight against the project, saying that it threatens one tribe's water supply and its sacred lands. While the U.S. Justice Department has put a temporary halt to part of the project, as the NewsHour's William Brangham reports, the fight is far from over.
After months of protest, it was a moment to celebrate.
And today we are victorious again.
Last Friday, the Department of Justice blocked construction on part of the $4 billion Dakota Access Pipeline, the very pipeline that brought these thousands of protesters here to rural North Dakota.
We are a proud nation.
But celebration soon turned to suspicion. That's because work on the pipeline hasn't fully stopped. In areas outside of federal jurisdiction, construction continues, as do efforts to block it. At least 22 people were arrested this week.
It is most definitely not a victory.
Liz McKenzie drove 1,000 miles from Albuquerque to protest with her fellow Native Americans.
People are finally noticing us. Not as beings of the past, not as like costumes you buy in the Halloween store. Like, we're here, we're still fighting, and that does mean a lot.
The Dakota Access Pipeline begins in North Dakota's Bakken oil field and would carry crude oil almost 1,200 miles through South Dakota and Iowa down to Illinois. The pipeline's original path crossed the Missouri River just north of Bismarck, a city that is 90% white. But when concerns were raised about a potential oil spill there, the pipeline was rerouted south to go under the river right next to the Standing Rock Reservation. The Missouri River is the reservation's primary source of drinking water. The tribe says a spill there could be catastrophic for them. So when construction started, a plea for help went out.
I am asking anybody who is willing to stand with us to say that water is important to come stand with us.
LaDonna Brave Bull Allard put out that call. She's a member of Standing Rock, and her land looks over the ridge where the pipeline would be built.
When I put the call out, I really thought maybe 40 people would come. It's overwhelming. In my own vision, I didn't expect this.
Now, over 100 Native American tribes from across North America have joined Standing Rock's movement. And in this sprawling camp, a community has formed. This kitchen serves donated food to all. Kids can take classes at a makeshift school. Cords of donated firewood are split and stacked, free for the taking.
Why do you think that this has taken off and spoken to so many people from so many parts of the country?
The water. We know how precious that water is. We know that we must stand for the water. Miniwachoni, we say water of life. So every time we drink water, we remind ourselves how important the water is. Don't you do that? You will now.
Protecting the water spurred Brenda Guachenia to drive 30 hours from Southern California to be here. She's from the Rincon Band of Luiseño Indians. She came with dozens of people, including her grandkids, and brought trucks full of donated supplies.
Walking in, it was so humbling to see all of these flags. All of the people, the native people, and all the reservations that showed up here to show Standing Rock. We're here to support you, and we're not going to let people do this to us anymore.
Guy Jones was born in Standing Rock. He says the tribes are tired of being ignored.
They didn't want it in Bismarck, but it was, oh, it's okay if the Indians, you can go down and run it through the reservation where all those Indians live. Who cares about the Indians? And that's one of the things is that, kind of incensed people.
The company that's building the pipeline, Energy Transfer Partners, says it's followed all the rules, and it points out the pipeline isn't even on reservation land. Plus, it argues that moving oil via modern pipelines is a far safer way than putting it on trucks or trains, which statistics show are far more likely to crash and spill. It also says the pipeline will generate revenue and jobs for North Dakota. We asked the company several times to talk with us on camera. They didn't make anyone available. We did speak with Ron Ness, president of the North Dakota Petroleum Council, the trade association that includes Energy Transfer Partners.
Pipelines are the most safe, most efficient, safest, and cost-effective way to move oil to market, and their products get there virtually 100% of the time without issue.
That said, the 2.5 million miles of oil and gas pipelines across the U.S. do sometimes leak and rupture, and when they do, they often spill far more oil than a single train car carries. Since 1995, there's been more than 2,000 significant accidents on oil and gas pipelines, causing about $3 billion in property damage. For example, in July 2010, at least 800,000 gallons of crude oil spilled into the Kalamazoo River near Marshall, Michigan. It was one of the largest inland oil spills in U.S. history and the costliest. Almost 5,000 acres of wetland habitat was inundated with oil. Hundreds of animals were killed. Thousands more were recovered, cleaned, and released. Full recovery could take decades. And just this summer, a pipeline in Canada spilled about 65,000 gallons of oil and other toxins into the North Saskatchewan River, polluting the drinking water used by the James Smith Cree Nation. The Petroleum Council says those kinds of spills near the Standing Rock Reservation are very unlikely.
This pipe is 90 feet below the riverbed. It's not going to leak right into the river. It's got the detection equipment and the shutoff valves on each side of this pipeline.
But LaDonna Allard doesn't believe the industry's assurances. She says 500,000 gallons of oil coursing every day under their drinking water is not safe.
When that oil spills, who's going to come save us? We're Indian people. We're expendable. Who is going to come? Who is going to come and give us water?
The tribe's other concern is that even though the pipeline is just off their reservation, it still runs right through areas they say are sacred ancestral grounds. 10 days ago, the tribe submitted evidence of newly discovered artifacts and burial sites, asking a state court for an emergency injunction. But before the court could make a decision, bulldozers started digging in that area. Protesters broke through a fence to try to stop them. They were met with pepper spray and guard dogs. Last month, the tribe sued the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, arguing that in its meetings with the tribe, the Corps ignored their concerns. David Archambault II is chairman of the Standing Rock Sioux tribe.
They never heard us. It was just a process that keeps moving forward because of the interest of economic development, the interest of money, the interest of greed.
But last Friday, a federal court in Washington rejected the tribe's suit, allowing the pipeline to proceed. It was at that point that the Justice Department halted the project, directing the Corps and other agencies to take a second look at the tribe's concerns. Now that the Department of Justice has stepped in and said they're going to halt this construction temporarily at least, is this over for you?
It's far from over, and we knew this coming in, that regardless of the outcome from the court's decision, This was the beginning. It's the start. We finally are getting people to hear.
For now, on the lands near the reservation, construction equipment sits idle while the federal reviews are underway. Despite this delay, work on the pipeline continues elsewhere in North Dakota. Back at the camp, people have begun building shelters so their vigil can continue on through the coming winter. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm William Brangham near the Standing Rock Reservation in North Dakota.
On a related note, a large gasoline pipeline that supplies the eastern United States was shut down this week after 250,000 gallons of gasoline leaked near Birmingham, Alabama. And online, you can hear more Native American voices from the front lines of the Standing Rock protest in an audio slideshow that's on our Facebook page, facebook.com/newshour.